The U.S. Army announced this summer it's projected to fall 10,000 people short of its recruitment goals set in 2019, a trend noticed by recruiters here in Indiana. WTIU has this report.
Sign you up today.
U.S. Army recruiters take down names, hand out information, and work a bouldering wall at the Indiana State Fair. They'll be there through the fair's close Sunday. It's the second largest in-person recruitment effort for Indiana Army recruiters in the last few years. And Sergeant Robert Morehouse says that's part of the reason the Army hasn't met its recruitment goals in recent years.
I believe that if more people could hear our message and hear how beneficial the Army is towards them and help them out, we may not be in the situation we are currently in.
His battalion covers Indiana going up to Fort Wayne and parts of Missouri. He says they tried to shift gears to keep numbers up during the pandemic, leaning more heavily on social media.
I mean, social media, you can only get only so far, and only so many individuals will ever see that.
Recruitment numbers have been going down since the 1970s, when active Army enrollment was at a high of more than 1,500,000. In 2014, active Army members were down to a little more than 515,000. Drops in new members have recruiters busy. This summer, U.S. Army officials predicted its total force will be 466,000 by the end of the fiscal year. Morehouse says his battalion is short about 1,000 recruits going back to the fiscal year 2019. The unemployment rate reached a high in the mid-teens during the pandemic. It's since dropped back to pre-pandemic levels of 3 to 4%, and Morehouse says the market is competitive right now, and young people are more selective about benefits.
That's our targeted demographic, all the way up to the age 35, and give them a skill while paying them a fair wage and providing all the other benefits that we just spoke about. It's not just the money for college, it's the intangibles as well. The free medical and the free dental for you and your family, the paid vacation up to 30 days.
The sustained drop in recruits can be partly blamed on a decreasing pool of applicants who can be accepted without a waiver. The U.S. Army reported 23% of Americans 17 to 24 years old are fully qualified to serve. For people who score lower on the military's aptitude test or don't meet fitness standards, the Army launched a 90-day program, the Future Soldier Preparatory Course. Giovanni Carrion-Chaparro commutes between a few recruiting stations in southern Indiana, including Bloomington's.
America's greatest army. This is Sergeant Knight speaking. How may I help you, sir, ma'am?
I know when I was trying to get in, I could just go into a recruiting station, no lockdown, no anything. But I think those 2 years of the pandemic it just added an extra hurdle in the process of getting our message out there.
He says part of the challenge is explaining to people the Army is more than just combat jobs, which he says only make up about 15 to 20% of positions. The struggle for recruits is something Lieutenant Colonel Elaine Samples with the Indiana National Guard has noticed too. She says in 2019, around 5,400 people were joining all branches of service in Indiana, and the Indiana National Guard was getting 30% of those.
You know, we've seen ups and downs over the past couple of years, but it's quite a big difference when you look at what we're going into now. We're looking at around 4,000 for this year, and it could be as few as 3,000 going into next year, according to our predictive models.
She says it's troubling because the Indiana National Guard was an essential part of Indiana's COVID-19 response plans, and lower recruitment could hurt their ability to meet state needs.
And you know, when there are floods, when there are tornadoes, we had the COVID response this past year. You know, the Indiana Army National Guard really showed up for the state of Indiana over the past couple of years, and we want to continue to be able to do that.
Morehouse is concerned about how recruitment will affect operations for the Army too, though he doesn't think it's time to raise alarms.
Well, I think we're always going to have an Army. There's always going to be those ones that find the higher purpose to answer the calling. I mean, I think that's always going to happen.
He says employment trends in the economy will heavily influence their ability to recruit and people's interest in joining, and it will take time to find viable solutions. For Indiana News Desk, I'm WTIU.